If you're a Mystery Dungeon fan, you'll know this song as the theme for Tiny Woods. But if you're a real hardcore Mystery Dungeon fan, you'll know in fact that it is a remix of Tiny Woods featured in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky. It is the music that plays in a dungeon called the Murky Forest. And Murky Forest is a dungeon exclusive to Igglybuff's special episode. Um, and I'll let you fill in the blanks there if you know at least that much why I chose this song for an Armaldo video. Hello everyone, this is Tetrafolium, and aside from checking your Pokemon Mystery Dungeon knowledge, I'm here to talk about Armaldo today. I've subtitled this video Making and Breaking Progress in ADV. This is referring to two of Armaldo's best utility moves, and I think you could probably guess which two if you know anything about Armaldo. As always, we're going to start with the viability rankings, and Armaldo is nowhere to be seen in the D rank or higher, so it is seen in the E rank, which is good. This is a Pokemon I think that is deserving of mention. It's not a super minor footnote like Electabuzz, frankly. No shade to Electabuzz, but Armaldo definitely has a little bit more of a palpable niche. I mean, it's in pretty good company, right? We've talked about Umbreon. We've shown off Donphan in a video, even though we didn't talk about it specifically. It's higher ranked than Scizor, who didn't even make the list here. So I think it's that should tell you that it is a Pokemon that actually does something. So let's get into what it does. First thing here is Knockoff. I call this the Progress Maker. In Gen 3, Knockoff has the following traits. It's a Dark-type move, which means it deals special damage. It's only 20 base power with 100 accuracy, and it makes a Pokemon's item unusable on hit, unless it's behind a substitute. And I make this distinction, makes a Pokemon's item unusable, rather than saying it knocks the opponent's item off or removes it, because in Generation 3, what actually happens is the item's effect basically gets nullified. So this means that you cannot trick or switcheroo with a knocked off item. The Pokemon who had their item knocked off cannot steal an item with Thief or Covet because it still technically has that item. And Recycle will actually fail if a Pokemon uses it to try to get like a berry back. Is that super duper important? Not really, but it might come up. So I just want to make that distinction very clear. Why is Knockoff such a important move in Generation 3? Well, that kind of has to come down to the most common item used in Gen 3. Because of limited item choice and the prevalence of permanent sandstorm, Leftovers is by a really wide margin the most commonly used item. So being able to knock off Leftovers can force a lot of sand-weak Pokemon to take residual damage from Sandstorm, and it'll stop the sand-immune Pokemon from recovering HP. One thing you might notice about a lot of the Steel, Rock, and Ground types in this generation is that they're pretty rare to have Recover or Soft-Boiled, or I hope that thunder was not in my in my microphone. That was really loud. Wow. In any case, yeah, a lot of these sand immune Pokemon do not have recovery moves, and a lot of them, like Swampert, like Skarmory, like Claydol, rely on getting Leftovers recovery to have longevity. So Knockoff can make progress on those Pokemon as well, or at least halt them from getting progress on healing back up to out of range of a particular move. The Knockoff users in ADV, as you'll notice, none of these Pokemon are OU ranked. I think in my opinion, there's an argument that Hariyama should be OU ranked, but it doesn't really matter, at least insofar as like what Pokemon are usable in OU. All of these Pokemon have niches and have been seen in OU before, even if they're not OU ranked. So the most important stats for knockoff users generally is their bulk. So let's do a little bit of a comparison here. Of all the Pokemon, Alakazam is by far the least bulky, especially on the physical side. Its Spadef is actually not terrible, so it could live maybe a few special hits. Well, I mean maybe one, but I guess it does have Recover to heal itself back up. Could be an interesting set. Hariyama's probably got the best bulk. I mean, 60 HP, or sorry, 60 defense and Spadef are not phenomenal, but the 144 HP makes up a lot of that. And pure fighting is not a necessarily great type defensively, but it's not bad either. Resisting rock is a pretty big deal in Gen 3, as you know if you've played. Sableye and Banette are a little bit on the frailer side, as tends to be the case with ghost types. But Sableye gets Recover, and Banette and Sableye both can switch into normal and fighting type moves without fear of like any damage. And then Armaldo here has a pretty nice balance of stats here. It's particularly good on the defensive side. 100 is, I mean, that's just good to have. It's also the only one of these that is immune to Sandstorm, which could matter depending on the Pokemon that you want to pair it with or the Pokemon that you're facing, i.e. Tyranitar. So that could matter a little bit. I kind of touched on this a little bit, but I've got a little bit of a key here that shows you who's more offensively inclined, who's more defensively inclined, and who's more of a hybrid. Hybrid meaning that they balance offense and defense. I believe actually in Pokemon Trose, this is a little bit of trivia here for you, that Armaldo notes how well it balances its offense and defense. So there you go. That's something for you, I guess. But yes, despite being on the frailer side, I consider Sableye to be a defensively inclined Pokemon because A, it really does not have strong enough attacks to threaten anything. Like, yeah, Stab Shadow Ball is something off of its base, I believe 75 attack stat, but it's not much. It would much rather would just come in, click Recover, and then if it can Seismic Toss out something, then it will. But the other Pokemon definitely have a little bit more of an offensive presence, particularly Banette with a 115 attack stat. That's actually really nice for a ghost type. It's a little too bad that it's on the slow side and the frail side. Otherwise, it could actually be a good OU Pokemon. In any case, yeah, the Pokemon that are a little more defensively inclined are obviously going to be able to stay in and click knockoff a few times, and they're not as punished by clicking knockoff into something that wants to attack them. One thing I should note about knockoff, because items are so important in Pokemon, generally the Pokemon that is going to take the knockoff for your opponent's team is going to be something that can threaten to beat any of these Pokemon here. So say, for example, Armaldo. Armaldo's pretty bad into Metagross, for example. So Metagross will likely be the Pokemon that comes in to take the knockoff, because if a Pokemon that is bad into Armaldo, say, for example, Snorlax, takes the knockoff, Snorlax is not going to be able to threaten Armaldo out, so they're going to have to switch anyway. And if it's a question of, do I want to let my Snorlax get knocked off and then potentially let another Pokemon get knocked off, or just accept that my Metagross is not going to have leftovers or a Choice Band or a Lumberry or whatever, then you're more incentivized to do the latter than the former. At the very least, yeah, if Metagross loses its item, but it can force Armaldo to switch or threaten to just kill it outright with Meteor Mash. So um, that's kind of the crux of what knockoff will do for you. So I believe now we're gonna pivot to the next move, Rapid Spin, which is the Progress Remover or the Progress Breaker. In Gen 3, Rapid Spin has the following traits. It's a normal type move, so it does physical damage, 20 base power, 100 accuracy, that should look kind of familiar, and it removes spikes and leech seed from the user's side of the field. That's pretty big. Spikes is a huge part of the metagame, as you know, and this is what it does, the fixed damage on switch in. So you can't really pivot around to respond to your opponent's offensive pressure or to pressure your opponent offensively with a different Pokemon. Skarmory, of course, is the most prominent spiker. There are plenty of other spikers like Fortress and Cloyster as well, but I mean, Skarmory's the poster child for this. But removing spikes from your side of the field can eliminate your opponent's ability to generate progress. So that means that you can pivot around and you do not have to fear taking so much chip and allowing your opponent to get your Pokemon into range for their late game cleaners or their win conditions to beat you. So here's a list of the Rapid Spin users in ADV OU. I should note that Fortress is also included in this list, but I decided not to include it as the 5 Pokemon here because I think I've talked about Fortress enough in my stall video with featuring Umbreon. So if you want to know a little bit more about it, you could look at it there, but don't you worry, we will get a little bit more Fortress in this video as well. Again, with Rapid Spin users, it tends to be their defensive stats that matter. Not to say that offenses don't matter, but you want to be able to take hits as you're going for Rapid Spin. Rapid Spin, because it's such a low base power move, is not like a lot of Pokemon can take that. So you want to make sure that your Pokemon who's Rapid Spinning isn't going to die for going for it. And Claydol is generally considered to be like the poster child for Rapid Spinning because it has the best mixed defense. 60 HP is not fantastic, but 105 defense and 120 special defense pretty much make up for it. That's just really good. But we also have Dawn Fan here, who's pretty notable with the 120 defense and 90 HP. Really, really good at getting Rapid Spins off on physical Pokemon. Starmie is kind of nice because it has a lot of set variety. It's really hard for Pokemon to sort of predict what Starmie is going to do. If it's got max Spatak and Hydro Pump, there are a lot of Pokemon that cannot take that, but if it was a low Spatak investment Starmie with Surf, then maybe some Pokemon would want to combat that. Some Pokemon don't want to take a Thunder Wave. Like, it's really a phenomenal Pokemon. And it's got okay defenses. 60 HP is not great, but 85 in defenses is pretty good. Cloyster is very, very stratified with the 180 defense. That is one of the best defense stats in the entire game, I believe only behind Steelix and Regirock. I think tying with Deoxys defense, which is, I mean, it's got defense in the name, so that should tell you how good that is. But 50 HP and 45 Spadef is just terrible. It will fold to any super effective special attack, and it will fold to a lot of neutral and resisted special attacks as well. So yeah, keep that in mind. Here's kind of the breakdown for who's more offensively inclined and who's more defensively inclined. Cloyster, yes, it has a really, really good defense stat and can take a lot of physical hits, but primarily it wants to get its spikes and explode. It might want to Surf or Ice Beam, depending on what's in front of it, but generally, it's on a faster paced team. It's usually a facilitator of offense. Starmie is kind of interesting because its defensive sets do provide a lot of utility, especially because of Recover, but it can also go a lot more offensively inclined. So it's a hybrid and offensive slant in one. So that's why it's got that multicolored border. We've already talked about Armaldo, and I think Claydol and Donphan are pretty self-explanatory as as trading earthquakes for against physical attackers that can't really handle them. So what about Pokemon that can do both things at once? Well, there are only two Pokemon that have access to Knockoff and Rapid Spin, those being Armaldo and Kabutops. And here are their stats, just as a little comparison. What you'll notice is that Armaldo has a pretty decent HP lead, 75 versus 60. Armaldo's got slightly less defense, but not much, and you would rather have 15 more points in HP than 5 more points in defense, especially when the defense is so relatively high as compared to the HP. You also have better Spadef with Armaldo, and slightly better attacking stats as well. Where Kabutops is a lot better is in its speed. The base 80 speed is pretty good, but like at the end of the day, if you're looking for utility, the defensive stats matter more. So I think Armaldo is a little bit better, and that kind of bears out in their respective rankings, where I believe Kabutops is an RU Pokemon. Armaldo is a UUBL. Except that's actually some misinformation there. Not on their stats, but due to how breeding mechanics work with passing on egg moves, neither of these Pokemon can have Knockoff and Rapid Spin on the same set. So there are, in fact, 0 Pokemon that have the ability to Knockoff and Rapid Spin in the same game. Just for your information, how this works is Armaldo gets Knockoff from Crawdaunt, and it gets Rapid Spin from Kabutops. So like how the breeding works is you have to get it from your father. So you have to have a male, say, Crawdaunt or Corphish that has Knockoff breeding with a female Armaldo or Anorith to end up with an Anorith that has Knockoff. But if you wanted Rapid Spin, the father would have to be Kabuto or Kabutops instead. And you can't have both fathers, and you can't pass the egg move from a Armaldo or an Anorith that has those moves. So you just can't have both on the same set. For Kabutops' sake, you get knockoff similarly from Crawdaunt. You get Rapid Spin from Blastoise. So yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. It would be really cool if you could do both things at the same time. It would be really, really interesting synergy and consolidation of utility, but alas, it's not meant to be. Wonder if that was an intentional balancing decision. I kind of doubt it, but could have been. So the question here is, which side are you on? Are you a progress maker or a progress breaker? And which one should you pick for Armaldo? Well, I don't think that either is a bad choice. I think that both have their place and both fit onto different teams. But let's talk about the sets and maybe sort of elucidate which ones matter. And potentially what you would do to support those. So the first one is going to be the Rapid Spin set. It has Rapid Spin, it's got HP Bug or Earthquake, it's got Rock Blast or Rock Slide, and then Swords Dance Rest. Whether you pick HP Bug or Earthquake depends on what Pokemon you're trying to hit. HP Bug is obviously a lot better into Celebi. It also helps against Claydol. And Starmie, I guess, if depending on how willing you are to take a water type move. Whereas Earthquake is going to be better into your steel types like Metagross and Jirachi. Um, I guess maybe you could make an argument for Tyranitar, but Tyranitar is also weak to Bug. And with the stab boost, I believe that HP Bug actually does more damage than Earthquake does. So that's kind of a moot point, although they're pretty similar. So at least in terms of hitting Tyranitar. And then Rock Blast versus Rock Slide. Rock Blast has the potential to do more damage because it's a multi-hit move. If it hits 5 times, then it deals a good chunk more than Rock Slide. But if it only hits twice, then it's not great. And Rock Blast makes Rock Slide feel consistent because it's an 80 accuracy move in this generation, which is really, really lame. It makes you feel like you're gonna miss a lot of Rock Blast. I mean, yeah, for a move that's not nearly as powerful as like Hydro Pump or Fire Blast, I don't know why they decided to have it be merely 80 accuracy, but I guess I don't know. It is what it is. And then Swords Dance Rest is kind of depending on whether you want to have more longevity or whether you want to be a more immediate threat. Swords Dance is kind of cool because the 125 base attack of Armaldo makes it pretty threatening, especially to Pokemon that do not resist its dual stab combo. But then Rapid Spin, of course, is the move that makes the beast here. It's really nice for getting rid of the hazards, and yeah, I mean, one of the big things with Rapid Spinners is how well do you take on the ghost types, and Armaldo is not fantastic against Gengar. It doesn't like to take a Will-O-Wisp, but with Rock Blast, if you get lucky, you can outright kill Gengar, and you don't need to go for Psychic, which is a move that is somewhat decently commonly resisted in this generation. Now, granted, Rock Blast is resisted as well by a lot of the defensive ground types, by the steel types, but I guess you have a little bit of wiggle room to play around that. In any case, Armaldo could do worse against Gengar than others, and against Misdreavus or Banette or Sableye, then you are actually really good because most of those Pokemon do not get Will-O-Wisp. Well, I guess I believe Banette does, so maybe that could be a little bit of a problem for you, but with Rest, you're kind of okay against them. So if you want Armaldo as your spinner, there's definitely reasons for that. And then Knockoff is essentially the same set, but with Knockoff instead of Rapid Spin, obviously, because you can't run both of them on the same set. So, although it looks like Knockoff, at least for the person who wrote the standard set for this on Smogon, they prefer Swords Dance over Rest, and I kind of see the argument for that because once you knock something off, it's as Jimothy Cool puts it, it's kind of Christmas morning if you manage to get something else knocked off. So you would like to get immediately into your offensive pressure. So you could maybe look at Knockoff as being a little bit more offensively oriented, and Rapid Spin maybe slightly more defensively oriented, but that doesn't really bear out in the EVs here. For some reason, they prefer a little bit more HP, a little bit less defense. I'm just going to be honest with you. I can never tell what these are for if they don't explicitly say it, which is a lot of the reason why I make these videos, because like if I don't understand your EV spread, then I need to make my own. And that's kind of like the point of the next slide or two here. Also, I think it's kind of weird that they have 202 HP. Technically, Pokemon can get up to 110 effort values, but only multiples of 4 actually affect the stats. So while it's totally possible to have this EV spread on cartridge, it is functionally no different than if you had 200 HP, 252 attack, 56 defense. So I mean, I don't understand why that's not a multiple of 4 in there. Everything else kind of defaults to that. So it was kind of an interesting quirk of the write-up on Armaldo. So here's some slightly more niche sets for Armaldo, which also shows that weird quirk of 202 HP. So because it has a really high attack stat, and it is bulky enough to take a hit or two, it kind of works pretty well as a choice bander. As you see, the choice band set prefers knockoff to rapid spin, which, I mean, that makes a lot of sense because knockoff is going to give you more offensive pressure. I should note here that Brick Break is a perfectly valid move choice for choice band in particular. It's threatening to KO Tyranitar, and it also does a lot of damage to both Blissey and Snorlax. I mean, all the big three of hitting super effective for fighting type. So that's pretty good. But I want to note another set here that I'm not necessarily going to use, but it is a set that is used somewhat commonly in tournaments, the Snorlax counter. So the moves that make this set are Harden, Seismic Toss, Knockoff, and then your last move could kind of be a few different things. Protect is kind of interesting because you're a sand immune Pokemon, you have leftovers. You can get some chip back that way. Rest is fine, and HP Bug is fine as well, especially if you want to hit Celebi. But the idea is that you will match boosts with a Curse Snorlax, with Harden getting that +1, and Snorlax is not going to be able to beat you one-on-one, thanks to your ability Battle Armor, which makes it so that you're not able to be crit. So the most that Snorlax is going to be able to do against you is if it has Focus Punch, which is a 3-hit KO. And with the EV spread that I'm suggesting here anyway, this is going to be a lot more defensively oriented than the other Armaldo sets. But despite that, we like to have knockoff because we want to remove Snorlax's leftovers recovery so that we can just Seismic Toss it down. Mimic is there on the same move slot as Harden. Reason why is that you can use Mimic to copy Snorlax's Curse. Then you can Curse boost alongside Snorlax to get the same effect that you do with Harden. The advantage there is that you'll have attack boosts as well, so if you want to use HP Bug, or if you wanted to switch Seismic Toss out for a different move, then you have the ability to do so. Although I will say that that's a little bit inconsistent, because if the Snorlax, say, is a utility lax that doesn't have Curse, then you're going to Mimic probably Body Slam, which is not bad, but not necessarily what you want. And if the Snorlax ends up going for something other than Curse for whatever reason, maybe it's a Curse Body Slam Snorlax and it just wants to get the paralysis off on Armaldo, then you'll Mimic the Body Slam, and then Snorlax curses up, and then you kind of lose your ability to counter Snorlax in the long term, which is not nice. Yeah, I mean, interesting if you know that your opponent is like a Snorlax crutch, or if you need a team to have a really, really good dedicated Snorlax answer. But other than that, I don't know if I love this set. That's why I'm not going to use it. In fact, I'm going to use a variation on the Progress Maker. So this is essentially the knockoff set. It's got a slight reallocation of EVs. One thing that I notice with a lot of people who build Pokemon sets is that people are not willing to cut into their main attack investment on offensive-oriented Pokemon. And I think that if like the sort of common theme with a lot of my videos and a lot of my Pokemon set is that you do not have to run completely max attack or special attack to get value out of your Pokemon. And that's why I like to explain what the damage rolls are for the particular set that I'm proposing. So with this, we can OHKO a utility Celebi with HP Bug after Sand, and pretty much every other Celebi set has less defensive investment, so we can just straight up OHKO most of the other Celebi sets without Sand. We will OHKO an offensive Starmie, and we'll live Surf over 80% of the time thanks to our Spadef investment. That being said, it is still a roll, so it could just kill you outright, but it's kind of nice if you know that the Starmie has Surf. If it has Hydro Pump, then it will kill you, well, 80% of the time, because if it hits, it kills you. If it misses, though, then you hit the HP Bug. And, like, you think about it, right? 80% chance that you'll live Surf, 20% chance that you'll dodge Hydro Pump. Pinkercross would tell you that means that Armaldo beats offensive Starmie 100% of the time. No, that's not how the probability works, but shoutouts to that video, which explains how to apply probability concepts to Pokemon. If you haven't watched it, I would definitely recommend it. We'll also 2-hit KO Claydol and defensive Starmie. Not necessarily great into defensive Starmie because that will still outspeed us and it'll still threaten to 2-hit KO us with Surf. But definitely worth noting if you're up against a low health defensive Starmie. Rock Blast is the move that I opt for here rather than Rock Slide. And the reason why is particularly to deal with Substitute. So how multi-hit moves work basically is that each of the hits is treated as an independent event. Each of them can crit. Each of them can attack, and if there's a substitute involved, if one hit breaks a substitute, then the next hit can go on and attack the Zapdos. So in this case, the idea is that we have enough attack investment that one hit of Rock Blast will break a substitute from a 252 HP Zapdos. Albeit, generally Zapdos does not run 252 HP and substitute on the same set, but if it happens to, you can. But the important thing is that if it's a 252 HP Zapdos, if we get 4 hits, we will one-shot the Zapdos. And if we Swords Dance, as long as we hit at all, because you're guaranteed to get at least 2 hits, you will straight up kill Zapdos, which is, I think, really nice. There are other substitute Pokemon in this generation, like Suicune, like Raikou, and we may or may not break their substitutes depending on their defensive investment. With one hit, most likely not, but 2 hits generally will break most substitutes on Pokemon that at least are not resisting Rock Blast, which means that we have the chance to get extra damage on them with the 3rd hit, and the 4th hit and the 5th hit, if that happens as well. But that being said, Rock Blast does do a pretty good amount less if you only hit twice than Rock Slide. Also has a higher chance to miss, so if you would prefer to run Rock Slide, that's totally valid. You can just straight up switch out Rock Blast for Rock Slide. You still probably want this attack investment that I'm suggesting, because you want to get the OHKO on utility Celebi with the sand damage, but you could also opt to go a little bit higher if you wanted to go up to 252 Adamant. I think that does guarantee an OCO on utility Celebi, so there's a little bit of an adaptation for you if you would like to do something different with this set. This defensive investment, the HP is pretty important. This will allow Armaldo to survive 4 Seismic Tosses after its Leftovers recovery. So Seismic Toss is going to deal a fixed 100 damage the vast majority of the time. There's not really much point in running lower than level 100 Pokemon this generation, like there's not really much benefit to having low speed except on Baton Pass Pokemon, but like I mean it's so niche that you don't have to worry about the losing a speed tie. This is something that happens sometimes in future generations where there's things like U-turn and teleport, but that's a topic for another discussion. In any case, 4 Seismic Tosses should do 400 damage or 400 HP total. With 3 turns of Leftovers cooked in, we will hit just over 400 HP. So that gives us extra turns to do something against, say, a Blissey. If we want to knock it off and then Swords Dance and then go for Rock Blast and miss it and then go for another Rock Blast, then we can do that. With 188 HP and 52 Spadef, we will live Surf from an unboosted defensive Suicune, meaning 0 special attack investment, after 3 layers of spikes. It's kind of good. That's specifically what I was looking for with the Spadef investment, but that'll help out versus things like Zapdos and with Thunderbolt and say, I don't know, who's another prominent special attacker, like a Celebi Psychic as well. So I do like this kind of idea with the special defense. If you are less concerned about that, you could obviously put that, reinvest that into your attack, and then if whatever you have left over in your defense, if you would like to go more into the attack, that's fine. I would not lower the HP investment at all. But speaking of the HP investment, we need at least 64 EVs with our particular HP investment to live an unboosted Jolly Tyranitar Rock Slide after 2 layers of spikes. This is an extremely niche interaction, but just note that we are EV to live a Rock Slide from Tyranitar unless it's adamant. Then it has rolls to kill. But we also have a 50-50 live if there are 3 layers up with the defense investment that we have here. That being said, if this is not something that you're super duper concerned with, you could take a little bit of defense investment out, reinvest into attack, like I said, for the special defense. But note that having defense investment is going to help you out against Pokemon like Snorlax, who otherwise can try to beat you down with Earthquake or Focus Punch or whatever nasty other move they might have, like Shadow Ball, I guess. We don't have any speed investment here, but I want to note that we outspeed Snorlax and Fortress at base. We'll outspeed a minus speed nature Regice, which is, I believe, the most common Regice nature. Quiet, which is going to boost its special attack. Although sometimes Regice will opt to not run a minus speed nature, particularly if it's foregoing Explosion as an option. You can watch my Regice video to see what I think about that. And then Min Speed Umbreon, we will also outspeed. Min Speed Umbreon only really exists on Wish plus Baton Pass. And that is extremely rare, so I don't know if that really matters, but it's good to know that we can outspeed an Umbreon, so we can get our HP bug off and do a lot of damage to it. As for the team, this is one of the stranger teams I've put together, I think, but I call it double bug beatdown because we have Fortress, which will set spikes and spin, and Armaldo will remove items like leftovers with knockoff. Lead Blissey is something that is very uncommon, and many people would probably think that this is not a good idea, but in particular, I think we have better switch-ins for Tyranitar and Metagross on this team than we do for Suicune and Zapdos, and I would rather not let Suicune get combines up early, and I would rather not let Zapdos get a free substitute. So that's kind of the idea here. As for the other common leads, Salamence only really beats us if it's banded, which is somewhat common in the lead slot. But even then, I'm not sure if it's a guaranteed kill with Brick Break. I could probably calc that real quick just to make sure. Our utility Blissey versus a Salamence. I can't spell. Banded. We should only take, wow, 98.9 maximum. So even against a banded Salamence, we can just Ice Beam and get the kill. There are some kind of niche Salamence sets that are designed to live a Blissey Ice Beam, and then Dragon Dance, and then be able to kill Blissey with a Brick Break. I mean, well, actually, even then, you don't quite kill Blissey with the Brick Break because +1 is effectively a choice band boost. So if that's and that's not very common in the lead slot because of the same concept that you don't quite kill the Blissey, so without chip first. So yeah, that you probably don't have to worry about that. So we're actually pretty good into Salamence there as well. And we could also get Thunder Waves off on some other leads that we happen to live a hit from. Celebi and Moltres are here to punish low Spadef Pokemon. So things like Dugtrio, things like on Revenge Kill, of course. Things like well, we don't really have an Iron Valiant in this tier. I'm sure I will come up with something. Oh, like Jolteon maybe. Particularly on Celebi's case, because you don't want to take a Thunderbolt for Moltres. But trust me, there are some Pokemon that you can hit pretty hard with special attacks. Otherwise, special offense would not be a good archetype. We have offensive Flygon as our only Rock Resist. Rock Resist is probably the most important thing in ADV, and offensive Flygon being the only one is not generally advisable, but I think that it'll work. We have enough defensive pieces. Blissey can live a Rock Slide usually. Celebi can live a Rock Slide usually. Fortress might be able to live a Rock Slide as well. So we can do something if Flygon is not built to take the Tyranitar or the Aerodactyl on. But one thing I will note about this team, it kind of skirts the line between balance and stall a little bit. I would say it's probably more on the balance side because of the Celebi and the Moltres sets, which took me a while to figure out, and I'm still not sure if I have the right Celebi set. I might want Leech Seed instead. Spoiler, I don't have Leech Seed on Celebi. This team can play kind of passively against stall teams. We can go to Armaldo and knock off some items, and then we can go to Blissey and stall out a little bit. Fortress can set up some layers for us, and Moltres can spread some burns. But we can play pretty aggressively against balanced teams as well because we have the offensive Flygon, we have a win condition Celebi, we have a pretty strong Moltres, so it kind of does well on both sides. Against dedicated offense teams, our mileage is going to vary. It depends on what gets set up in our face. But yeah, this is the team. I think it's got some merit. I don't know if it's the best possible Armaldo team, but yeah, let's just take a look at what we can do with it here. So, all right, let's play the music first. This is versus Steven, the champion of Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, who has an Armaldo on his team. Kind of cool. I've also changed the layout. Sorry, that got basketball on the mind, I guess. Of how I'm presenting this. Let me know if you prefer this or if you would rather have like the text cut off on the side. I'm a little bit skeptical of this like black box here, and like the featured set is maybe helpful, maybe not. I think it would be kind of cool if say if there's somebody out there who is a really nice artist and who would like to make fan art per se that I could use here. That would be great. I don't know if I have the money to pay somebody to do that, so like do not do it if you're not willing to do it for free, and also probably just don't do it. Like, I'm not worth that level of effort. But I thought that could be kind of cool if you guys like this idea and we want to expand it in the future. If you prefer how it looked before, just let me know and I will change it back. But we'll have the whole text output here, so that's kind of nice. In any case, first game is against MX Sunday, who I believe I played this gamer a few times on the ladder, sometimes with this team, sometimes with other teams, and they were up at like 1600, so they were pretty good. I mean, I'm just gonna show here. I don't know if you can see that. You can't see that rating, but 1401. They lost a couple games to me, let's just say. They may have lost to some other players, but I think this guy's got an interesting team. So let's take a look. Lead Tar versus Lead Blissey, the matchup of the century here, and the Tar switches out. So this is important information here. This on turn 1. I know I'm gonna BKC it up here. Tyranitar switching out against Blissey, to me, communicates that it is either a special Tyranitar or that it does not have a Lumberry. Special Tyranitar does absolutely nothing into Blissey. Even with Brick Break, it's not even 2-hit KOing. So, yeah, it's not great. And if it's an offensive Tyranitar, the reason why you would switch generally is because you don't want to get Thunder Waved. And if you had Lumberry, you could go for Dragon Dance, Lumberry off, and then threaten with Rock Slide. Granted, Rock Slide doesn't, even at +1, does not guarantee a KO on Blissey, but you could get the flinch. You could have, I mean, it's definitely not Substitute, and it definitely isn't Focus Punch, because I think it would have went for those if it was. In any case, I go to Flygon, who is going to handle most Tyranitar sets. This Tyranitar is probably not going to Ice Beam into a lead Blissey. And my opponent goes to Celebi, and Flygon is built pretty well to take on Celebi because I am max attack adamant, and I get an HP bug off, which does a lot. My opponent Calm Minds, which tells me that probably going to Baton Pass, and they do. I just go for HP Bug again in case they tried to get Cute and Recover or Leech Seed. But Salamence is in with a special attack boost. I can go to Blissey, and even if it's a mixed Mence, it's not going to do much to me. Because it has the Spadef boost, I actually don't kill it outright with Ice Beam. So I will go for Thunder Wave, which it was already revealed to have leftovers, so not worried about Lumberry there. I can get my fast Soft Boiled off as Blissey comes in, or Celebi comes in to heal Bell, and my opponent will sack the entire Celebi to get rid of the paralysis on Salamence, which, I'm going to be honest, I don't think that was a great play. I think that, and this Jirachi, who's going to come in and substitute, I think that would have been a much better switch than to Celebi, and, like, taking the entire, or losing the entire Celebi just to get rid of this paralysis. I mean, my Blissey's still healthy and can certainly paralyze the Salamence again, so I don't know why they did that. And they have a substitute Jirachi with probably 404 HP, so their substitute's not going to get broken by Seismic Toss, which is my last move on Blissey. So I will go to Moltres here, and take a Psychic, and Roar. I want to note here, in one of my previous videos, somebody left a comment asking, and this is a great question, how was I able to predict that somebody's Jirachi had Thunder and Ice Punch as its two moves? And I gave a kind of long-winded reply in the comments, but basically it comes down to the combination of moves, defensive investment, and the context of the situation here. So, this particular Jirachi with Substitute, generally speaking, Substitute Jirachi has the moves Calm Mind, Psychic, and Fire Punch. That's just what the standard set is. I'm not going to go into too much detail why that is. Those are the two moves that you would pick for that Jirachi set. But in any case, I was not that scared of a Thunderbolt there. Thunderbolt would have killed Moltres at +1, or potentially. I think it might depend on the Jirachi's attack investment, but I was not scared of it, so I could get my Roar off. Tyranitar will come in here, and I'm thinking this could probably be, because it didn't stay in versus my Blissey, it's probably not Lumberry, so I'm going to get my Will-O-Wisp off and burn it. But it actually reveals to be Lumberry, which is kind of crazy. I wonder if they should have done something a little different on the first turn. In any case, I will go to Flygon and get a Substitute off, expecting the Tyranitar to switch and expecting it not to have Ice Beam in particular. Although we would have scouted Ice Beam because we're faster, get a Substitute off. Salamence comes in, intimidates, but I can go for a Rock Slide, which does a solid 39%. And at this stage, I can go to Armaldo, who should take pretty much all of Salamence's hits pretty well. And I'll go for Rock Blast, threatening to kill off the Salamence if it stays in. Skarmory comes in, takes a little bit of chip, and goes for Toxic. I will knock off to get rid of its leftovers. And now Skarmory cannot really, it's not going to have as much longevity anymore. I'll go for Swords Dance on a Spike, and my opponent protects as I go for Rock Blast. If I was the GOAT, I would have clicked Swords Dance again. But I would just click Rock Blast. I hit the Jirachi here, and I'm doing a solid amount. I only get 2 hits, but one of them is a crit, so it's like I got 3 hits. And I'll go for Rock Blast again. Reason being, basically, is that if I get 5 hits, I might kill this Jirachi, whereas HP Bug is not going to kill Jirachi. If it goes for Substitute as well, I could potentially get extra damage on it, and it covers a switch to Skarmory, and I get probably the best possible outcome, which was a switch to Skarmory. I get a critical hit on the first one, but only hit twice, so it's as if I hit 3 times. If I got 4 hits, I would have just killed this Skarmory right off. And I'm going to die to Toxic on the next turn, so I'm not going to allow that to happen. Predicting a Protect, I go to Fortress. Jirachi comes in, and I get a Spike Up, which might have been a mistake on my part. I probably should have spun, but I will stay in and spin as the Jirachi goes for Fire Punch, which is the best outcome that for the line that I picked. If it got behind a Substitute, I would have probably had to go to Blissey and Seismic Tossed it away, and I was risking burns or drops from Psychic or crits, but instead my opponent plays in a way that I can get a trade with Celebi so that Blissey can come in and I'm guaranteed to kill this with Seismic Toss. Since Jirachi can only get to 404 HP, Seismic Toss will be doing a minimum of 25%. I guess like 24.9% technically. So yeah, my opponent will opt to go to Skarmory to set up a layer of spikes, and then goes to Tyranitar and doubles Salamence. In either case, Thunder Wave was the best play. I could Thunder Wave this Tyranitar, and if it's DD, it will completely fold to Flygon, who will outspeed it no matter how many boosts it gets. And if they went to Salamence, then I can outspeed and Ice Beam it very easily. Tyranitar comes back in, Dragon Dances, and I will Thunder Wave this. Lumberry Substitute is not a set. It's just not. If you caught me with that, you kind of just deserve the win, I'll be honest. I go to Fortress and I will click Earthquake rather than spin away the spike because I want to guarantee, no matter what spread this is, that I'm going to kill it with Earthquake. And like between Flygon and Blissey, one spike up, I could probably take on whatever the unrevealed is. I don't know exactly what it would be. My guess, I would think maybe Metagross because of Salamence, but I don't know if you want Metagross and Jirachi on the same team. I mean, granted, this is a substitute called Mind Jirachi, so you could just have a like Agility Metagross or just standard bulky attacker or whatever. I don't know what it is. Maybe it was Suicune. But even if it was Suicune, I feel like you could play to win the game, so maybe not. I don't know what my opponent's last was, but it was probably not something that matched up well into Flygon if they were just going to forfeit right away. And I steal a little bit more elo from this guy, unfortunate, but that is the way of the world. Some of you guys are farming me when I'm playing with some unoptimal Pokemon, so it's give and take. Alright, next. Actually not that game. We'll do this game next. Lead Tyranitar versus Blissey. I'm telling you, this is a very common thing. I'll go to Flygon here once again, and my opponent goes to Skarmory, who is probably the best matchup against Flygon. Then we'll get a Spike Up, which is good. I agree with that idea, because you never know. If I have a Magneton and I go to Magneton on Skarmory, and you go for Toxic, then that could be really bad. But it is fortunate that they just got a Spike Up instead of Toxicking my Moltres. I go for Will-O-Wisp, and I do get the burn on Tyranitar, and it does not have a Lumberry, which is really nice. Fortress can come in pretty easily, but this actually reveals to be a Pursuit Tyranitar, which commonly runs Fire Blast, so I can't really stay in. I will go to Flygon. My opponent goes to Gengar to block the spin. So I will go to Blissey, because I cannot stay in and take a Will-O-Wisp or an Ice Punch with my Flygon. Blissey here, I will go for Thunder Wave. If the Gengar stayed in, it would have basically bricked it. But my opponent astutely goes to Tyranitar. I'll opt to just get my HP back. Skarmory will get up its the second layer, and I will Thunder Wave it. Thunder Wave is quite nice because Skarmory will be slower than Fortress. It will also, and Armaldo, it also might steal turns from it, so that's quite good. And I will go for HP Ghost, predicting the Gengar to come in, which is really nice. I can go to Moltres here. I doubt that my opponent would click a T-Bolt into Fortress. It wouldn't kill, and I'm threatening to kill it back with HP Ghost, so that's not good. I'll go for a Flamethrower, which is a pretty low drawback play. In comes Aerodactyl, excuse me. And I go to Armaldo here. So basically the idea was if I go to Flygon on a double edge, I'm going to get 2-hit KO'd. And I'm really, really bad if Flygon goes down to Aerodactyl. So I would rather sack Armaldo to a Rock Slide than allow Flygon to take a double edge. And my opponent does opt to go for double edge, probably trying to hit the Flygon, but Armaldo tanks that. So I don't anticipate my opponent to stay in and potentially die to a Rock Blast or a Rock Slide. So I'll go for a Knockoff and knock off the Skarmory's leftovers, this is playing out kind of similarly to last battle. I'll go for Swords Dance here as Gengar comes in. And it will Will-O-Wisp and hit, and I will go for Rock Blast and miss, which is an unfortunate reality of Armaldo, is that you're just going to miss your Rock-type moves. Then my opponent will go to Jirachi, which I predict my opponent to switch, and I get the knockoff on Jirachi, which is quite nice. I will go for HP Bug just to get some damage off on Jirachi. At this point, Armaldo's not going to be able to do anything, so I'm just willing to stay in and sack it off here. And I get 4 hits with Rock Blast, which is like a Christmas miracle. I will Rapid Spin here because I felt like my opponent would get a little too cute and roar away the Fortress. And this is the worst possible way that this turn could have played out for them, because Moltres is threatening a huge fire move into whatever, flamethrower, as I've already revealed. That gets Chip into Tyranitar, which, I mean, doesn't do that much, but it's good. It means that HP Grass is certainly going to get the 2-hit KO, and my opponent goes for Crunch. I knew I was safe to stay in because Crunch does not commonly run Rock Slide. The worst possible move he could have had was Thunder Wave, but I was willing to allow my Moltres to get Thunder Waved in order to finish off the Tyranitar. Aerodactyl comes in, and I will go to Armaldo, who is going to die to 2 double edges thanks to the burn. But my opponent will actually switch to Skarmory. I go for a knockoff, which doesn't really get me anything. I Swords Dance because I might be able to get Rock Blast and kill this Skarmory. And I, of course, do not get quite enough hits to do it. So that sucks. I stay in and I go for an HP Ghost, which will 2-hit KO the Skarmory. The Skarmory's not able to roar or get its second layer off, which is quite nice. And I go for Spike. I probably should have just HP Ghost again. It was fine to kill the Skarmory, I think, and it also would have absolutely killed the Gengar here, and I super duper would have won the game at this stage. But that's kind of fine. I can go for HP Ghost now. If I get burned with the Will-O-Wisp, I still get the 2-hit KO on Gengar, which is what I go for. Generally speaking, Will-O-Wisp Gengar... Will-O-Wisp plus Fire Punch exists. It's not super duper common, but because my opponent was going for Will-O-Wisps earlier against Fortress, I was totally fine to risk a potential Fire Punch there. I think my opponent would have clicked Fire Punch if they had it by now, so that's fine. I will go to Armaldo to sack it so that Jirachi cannot get Calm Mind up if it happens to be Calm Mind Jirachi. And I'll go for Flamethrower to do a really good amount of damage, and I get a burn for my troubles. So it actually is Body Slam Jirachi, which is most likely Wish defensive, as it reveals. My opponent, I guess, is playing for Para, but I stay in and I Flamethrower. And this Moltres at this stage is not very useful to me. The Skarm is dead to almost any move I could go for. And I cannot allow my Flygon to get weakened by the Aerodactyl. So I will sack the Moltres, then go to Flygon. Wish comes true for the Aerodactyl, which is a little bit unfortunate. But I can Rock Slide and do a lot of damage. Then I can go to Fortress to sack it. And then Lastmon Celebi should live a double edge and threaten to kill with Psychic or Giga Drain. I go for Psychic. In comes Aerodactyl once more. Goes for Hidden Power. Probably Bug if it kills my Celebi from there, although I think Flying might get there. I'm not sure. But I can go to Blissey, who should live a Hidden Power whatever. And I go for Soft Boiled into their last Pokemon. I didn't know what their last Pokemon would be, if it was a fighting type or if it was Metagross. I probably lose for making that play, but it happened to be Flygon, so it kind of worked out for me. Although I should say, again, Metagross plus Jirachi is... It's not impossible, but like with Skarmory and Jirachi, I feel like it's you don't really want Metagross. So it was kind of safe. I was expecting probably like a Swampert there, but Flygon was very fortunate for me. Swampert probably would have gotten dicey as well. I would have had to trade Ice Beams and Soft Boiled into it. If it was a defensive Swampert, I probably end up getting through it with Blissey alone. At least good enough for Flygon to come in at some point. Although if Blissey goes down to whatever this unrevealed was, I probably just lose to Aerodactyl, because I'm not going to chip heal enough up with Flygon to dodge the KO from Double Edge. In any case, I did exactly what I needed to do to win the game, so I'll take it. Let's go this game next. I think this is the highest rated opponent that I ended up playing against at 1551. Lead Blissey into, this time, on Amistar. This is definitely not a lead matchup you've ever seen before. Actually, if you find a tournament replay where this lead matchup happens, link me in the comments below. I'll go for Thunder Wave on Amistar, predicting it to be lead spikes with an offensive slant. And that stops it from being able to do anything other than just set up spikes, essentially. I will kill it off there. I go for Ice Beam on the last. If my opponent wanted to save Amistar, then I have a 10% chance to freeze whatever comes in. That's essentially why I do that. You might say, like, that's a little bit cheesy. That's like, oh, it's maxing and not great. But I think about it as the saving that I don't have Ice Beam on Blissey is not super duper valuable to me, and a 10% chance to freeze a potential switch in that's a lot more valuable to me. So that's why I do that. In any case, my opponent gets 3 layers up, which is potentially bad for me, but I'm trusting in Fortress to get the spin off later. I go to Moltres, who takes a Body Slam from Snorlax and gets paralyzed, which is super duper unfortunate. I kind of have to commit to going for Will-O-Wisp here, and I do, and I manage to land it, which is really nice. And now this Snorlax is kind of neutralized. I'll go to Fortress, who should just absolutely farm the Snorlax for a spin, but I instead go for Hidden Power Ghost, expecting my opponent to want to go to a Ghost type to preserve the hazards. If you're going to lead Amistar, I would assume that you would have a Ghost type, but instead my opponent decides to self-destruct into the Fortress and then go to Medicham. If my opponent's not going to a Ghost type here, then I'm just going to assume that they don't have one, which is really strange for a lead Amistar team, but okay. My opponent goes for Brick Break, and it does not quite kill my Fortress, so I will be able to spin the hazards away. Some will argue maybe that was a bad move, if it was a banded Medicham. In fact, actually, let's check the calc to see what that was. Fortress, I am a standard Fortress with the max HP, max Def. Against Medicham, if it was Choice Band, it certainly would have killed me. So some will argue that I played kind of badly there around the Medicham. Actually, no, All Out Attacker does not get me. So this is a banded Medicham. It's just not adamant. It's a Jolly Medicham, which had a slightly favored roll to kill me. Okay, good to know. I probably did calc this in the battle itself, and with no item that does kind of scream Choice Band, although it could be Lumberry. In any case, I probably did calc this, but I played this battle, I think, last week, so I don't remember. Celebi can just come in and go for a Psychic to threaten to kill the Medicham. I don't have Leech Seed, so it's not like I could have clicked that. But my opponent does go to Blissey, willing to risk the Leech Seed, which is fine. And then I will knock the Blissey off, that's Christmas morning right there. A knocked off Blissey is a lot easier to deal with. I'll go to my own Blissey, and this reveals to be probably a utility Blissey, probably the same set as me, in fact. We're going to trade Thunder Waves here, and my opponent will go to Medicham as I Thunder Wave again. And a paralyzed Medicham is not too difficult to deal with. I'll go to Celebi, who takes a Hidden Power. If it's Hidden Power, it's got to be Hidden Power Bug. There's no reason to run Hidden Power Ghost because you get Shadow Ball with Medicham, as you should know if you watched my Medicham video. But this banded HP Bug still doesn't kill the Celebi, which is really, really cool. I'm not a super bulky Celebi either, so maybe there's an argument to not use HP Bug there. But I can essentially trade, go into Flygon. I get a lucky paralysis as I go for Substitute. I was kind of expecting a switch out, but I guess it makes sense to sack the Medicham there. Had had it not gone well for me, I would have just Earthquake and killed, and I would have been at this about the same HP, a little, I guess, one leftovers less than what I'm at right now. And I can go to Blissey, who can 1v1 a Blissey that's leftovers or unusable. I get Thunder Wave, so I will switch to Armaldo. Armaldo, if I get good luck here, I can Rock Blast and potentially get a 2-hit KO on the Blissey. I get 3 hits, which is not terrible, but not great. I will go for Hidden Power Bug just to make sure that I get the damage off. And then Rock Blast again. If I got a high amount of Rock Blast, I would have put this Blissey in a loop here, but I don't get the Rock Blast off. So that kind of cements that this is going to be a long game here. I was trying to do this to save you guys, but in fact it's going to be a long game. So let's go for fast mode, as my Blissey is going to PP stall this Blissey. So the important thing to note in this Blissey versus Blissey matchup, we both have Thunder Wave, and you'll notice that I'm not going for Thunder Wave at all here. Reason being is that the most valuable resource in this matchup is power points, and paralysis makes it so that I lose my turn and I don't spend any power points. So it is actually to my benefit to be paralyzed and to not paralyze my opponent's Blissey. This means that on average, every 4 moves that my opponent uses, I will only use 3. So I should win on the power points war. And as you can see, my opponent has already used a pretty significant number of their Ice Beam and Seismic Tosses. They've also used a good number of their Soft Boileds, whereas I've used only 1. So this is definitely favoring me. My opponent will actually switch to Aerodactyl on a Seismic Toss, which is really nice. And then I can go and sack the Armaldo, who's not really going to do much for me in the rest of this game. I can bring Flygon in and go for Rock Slide, and because of the Seismic Toss chip, I am able to kill the Aerodactyl. I cannot stay in versus Blissey, who has Ice Beam, of course, and I will continue this PP stall. So yeah, I mean, how's your day going? Probably pretty good, because you're watching the Tetrafolium video. Sometimes I think it's funny to have like that egotistical spin on my language, and sometimes I recognize that it can be kind of cringe. I'm doing it self-aware, so I hope that helps for those of you who do not like that style. What do you think this guy's last Pokemon is going to be here? It's kind of interesting. It's kind of like a Fizz offense team, but with Amistar as the spiker. So I'm anticipating that it's probably like a Metagross or something, but like, if it is Metagross, wouldn't you have went to it by now? I don't know. It could be a non-Lum Metagross. Could be an interesting thought. You might look at my Ice Beams like I'm trying to get the freeze, and yes, that is a part of why I'm doing it, but once again, this is mostly because I want my opponent to run out of moves before I do. The only thing they can do to stop running out from moves is to switch. But switching is a little bit difficult to do, because if their last Pokemon needs to not get paralyzed, then that could be really bad. Yeah, not really much to say here. It's like a ADV revival game here. I go for Thunder Wave here because I want to save some attacking moves now, because whatever this last Pokemon is, I might need them. And my opponent will immediately switch from getting paralyzed and reveal that their last is Kingdra, in fact, which I guess has some synergy with Amistar. You could set up the Rain Dance with Kingdra, and then if Amistar is still around, it's benefiting with Swift Swim. This is a little crazy, I think, to immediately switch off with a Thunder Wave. I think my opponent should view this matchup the same as me, in that you're gonna have to PP stall to beat my Blissey, and Thunder Wave, like, getting paralyzed only helps you in that endeavor. But now that I know that it's a Kingdra in the back, I'm kind of incentivized to go for Thunder Waves. Although my opponent's Kingdra reveals to not have an item or not have leftovers, which means that it probably has Lumberry. So even if I get the Thunder Wave off on it, I'm going to have to get another Thunder Wave. Wow, this battle's been going on so long, we looped. That's funny. This is, what? This is a 30-minute sample here. That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, this is going the exact same. I was thinking maybe about doing like a team building video and like discussing like my sort of philosophies on team building. It's a little bit different than what I've been doing. If you're watching this and you've stuck it out this far, you're obviously a fan of the channel and should subscribe if you haven't already. But let me know in the comments if you would like to see a dedicated team building video. I guess my opponent's getting a little impatient here, doesn't want to lose all their moves on their Blissey. So they will allow me to paralyze their Kingdra, and I will get the kill on it here, if they would be so kind to let me. I don't know if that was a good play, though. They kind of think better of it and go back to Blissey. The only way that this Blissey is going to... pretty much the only way that this Blissey is going to win the PP war is if I go for Ice Beam and freeze it, and it stays frozen for like ever. But I have enough seismic tosses that I can kind of put it down to low, at least low enough for Flygon to come in and win the game, as long as it doesn't thaw immediately on the turn that I go to Flygon. The other thing that they could do is they could switch to Kingdra if I go for a move that is not an attacking move. And because of my strategy of not paralyzing the Blissey, I am running pretty low on my attacking moves. I've saved 4, so I have 4 chances to get the 50-50 right. Which I feel like is pretty good odds. I'll go for a Thunder Wave there. I get the 50-50 wrong going for Ice Beam. I'll go for another Thunder Wave. And then I think I predict my opponent here. And I get the Seismic Toss off, and this should be game over. And I say GG in the chat, because this has been a long enough game. This is pretty standard here. I'm just going to wait for this guy to either forfeit or run out of moves with Blissey. There's pretty much no chance for my opponent to win unless they get paralyzed like 10 turns in a row and I never get paralyzed again. But yeah, no, my opponent runs out of Thunder Waves. They're going to have to click Ice Beam and and Seismic Toss. If they run out of the last Ice Beam, then Flygon can come in and live a Seismic Toss, although I would probably wait till my opponent is out of Seismic Tosses as well. They only have 3 soft-boiled, so they're kind of forced to burn through all their Seismic Tosses, and in that case, I can just burn off all of the rest of my Thunder Waves, and usually I'll win this. I guess my opponent could have tried to play it out. If they get luckier with Para than I do, then they could still potentially win. Because as long as they have enough health to survive a Earthquake and 1 Ice Beam left, they could win. But that, like, Struggle, because of how Struggle works, Blissey is going to heal back more from leftovers than it will deal with Struggle. And my opponent, because they do not have leftovers, if they get to the point of Struggle, it could be death by a lot of cuts. A lot. If my opponent played this out and I decided I never wanted to go Flygon, we could have had legitimately a 300 turn game, waiting for my opponent's Blissey to die to Struggle. Which is kind of funny. In fact, if my Flygon was dead and my opponent's Blissey had leftovers, this would have been a forced draw, which is pretty rare, but it can happen. If both of our Blisseys are down to Struggle and both recovering from leftovers, neither of us will ever do enough damage for Blissey to die, so it's a forced draw. I don't know if that's enforced in the game. It might be, but interesting to note. All right, last game here, and I know that that last one was long, maybe a little bit boring, but I'm telling you guys, I probably should have said this earlier. This is why you use Rock Blast. It is to deal with one of the most annoying Pokemon you will see on ladder, and I hope you get some catharsis out of this, because I similarly hate this Pokemon. Blissey, Ninjask. Oh my gosh, I could go on forever about why I think Ninjask is a really terrible, awful, low skill Pokemon, but I mean, I don't hate Ninjask so much, except for one set that uses Sand Attack. I think that's such a low skill thing, and I would love for it to be removed from the game. If it comes in the form of banning Sand Attack, great. If it's a complex ban that bans Sand Attack on Ninjask, great. If we lose the entire Ninjask for it, great. I don't care. In any case, my opponent will go to Breloom here, and I will go to Fortress. Swords Dancing Breloom. So I'm threatening an explosion now, as you know, probably, if you're looking at the paste. I don't have explosion on my Fortress, but I'm threatening it. So my opponent is kind of has to go for Spore, and that's fine. Sleep Sacking the Fortress is really what I want out of this exchange. I can go to Celebi, and even at +4, none of your fighting type moves are going to kill Celebi. So the way I look at it is either this Breloom has HP Rock, which will kill my Moltres, but not kill my Celebi, or it has HP Bug, which kills my Celebi, but won't kill my Moltres. I'm willing to go to Celebi here, because Moltres should be better into Ninjask, since I have Roar. And my opponent reveals Hidden Power Bug, so that kills my Celebi off, which is unfortunate, but Moltres should clean up with Flamethrower. Except it wasn't Hidden Power Bug, it was Hidden Power Ghost, and almost kills my Moltres there, which is, whew, that was scary. I'm not going to bother to check to see what the roll on that was, because I don't care. And my opponent will go for HP something into a Moltres. Given that my Flygon resisted it, I'm assuming it's HP Rock, but good to know, because they cannot break my substitute. I can break their substitute so long as I hit Rock Slide. I'm not sure if HP Bug would kill a Ninjask substitute. It might. But I can just keep going for Rock Slide. I had missed my Rock Slide on Marowak, which doesn't super duper matter, because I wouldn't have killed with Earthquake anyway, but Earthquake is 2-hit KOing, so my opponent can never go for Swords Dance there. And my opponent kind of gave me enough turns for my Flygon to live a Double Edge, which is really nice and good. Ninjask players keep playing badly. Sorry if this is you. It's not personal, but this Rock Slide, oh my, or Rock Blast. Let's go back. Let's watch that in really slow motion. In fact, okay, really slow motion is really slow. Let's go to slow. And this Ninjask here, oh boy, going for the substitute, the Rock Blast, destroying the first substitute, and you know you're cooked at this point, because Rock Blast is going to smoke Ninjask, who's ×4 weak to it, and that kind of loses you the game there. You do not have, generally speaking, this team is not built to win this matchup. My opponent goes to Alakazam. For what reason? I have no idea. I think they were trying to bait my Fortress to come in, because knowing that Fortress kind of walls Alakazam. But I have Armaldo here. What am I going to do other than click HP Bug? Like, that was a very desperation play from my opponent, who goes to Magneton. I should note here, Magneton is extremely common on Ninjask Speed Pass teams, because the most consistent counter to Ninjask is Skarmory, who has Roar and Keen Eye, so it will never have its accuracy lowered by Sand Attack if the Ninjask happens to be Sand Attack. This one did not happen to be, so there's at least a little bit of honor in this player. But they love to Baton Pass to Magneton on Skarmory, because Skarmory going for trying to set up a spike greedily on the Ninjask, or going for Roar, like Magneton is fine. Although that if you ever do go Skarmory on Ninjask, always click Roar, because you never want to let a Baton Pass to Magneton and kill you. Now, my team happens to have another Roar user, so I'm a little bit more resistant to that, but that's fine. Blissey should just 1v1 Magneton pretty easily. I'll go for Thunder Wave, trying to similarly T-Wave the Magneton. It'll also catch Alakazam and presumably whatever the last is. The last happens to be a Lumberry Salamence, who will go for Earthquake, which doesn't even 2-hit KO me, and I Ice Beam. I think if you're going to stay in with the Salamence there, actually, I'm not sure what you should do. Should you go for a Dragon Dance and pray for the full para? Because, like, Earthquake is kind of doing that as well. So I don't know. I can just sack Moltres, who's super duper low and has nothing it can really do. And my opponent will disconnect and time out, which I take back what I said about being honorable. That was very dishonorable disconnect from my opponent. But yeah, Flygon was super duper fine. I always outspeed Magneton. Earthquake will kill. You cannot really switch to Alakazam. If you do, it's kind of whatever. And then, but the combination of Fortress, Armaldo, and Blissey should clean up the Alakazam quite nicely. So, yeah, that's Armaldo. I think it's a very interesting Pokemon. I love knockoff. I think that there are a lot of good knockoff users, and I will certainly be using some of them in the future. But Armaldo has some really cool traits. I particularly like that it is a knockoff user that is not super duper scared of taking too many physical attacks. I mean, granted, Metagross is a little bit of a different story, but Hariyama, despite having really nice HP, can't live too many physical hits, and also does not have the pressure that it, with Swords Dance as Armaldo does. So yeah, I really do like this idea with Armaldo, and if you want to build a better team with Armaldo and let me know what it is, that would be great. I do think the Harden Armaldo set is really good in tournament. I don't know if it's really good on ladder though, because like Snorlax is kind of a crapshoot whether you'll even run into it on ladder, and if you're not running into Snorlax, then you're usually not doing anything with the Harden Armaldo set. So you might get some knockoffs in, which is kind of nice, but that's why I advocate for this set. It's a good balance of getting the knockoff off and being able to apply pressure with HP Bug and Rock Blast. So yeah, that's kind of it. My next video will be a pretty special one. I'm not going to spoil too much about what it is, but we'll be using another underloved Pokemon, perhaps unranked even, and perhaps with a little bit of actually no, I won't say, but definitely look forward to that, and I will see you next time.